Hope everyone's having a fantastic Sunday. Welcome to a creative world, or what will be a creative world. This is going to be a bonus stream, or I guess a reward stream. We hit 200 subscribers on Twitch last week, and we had posted that one of the things that was highly requested from the community would be a creative building Q&A. And that's what we're going to do. So I have a Google Doc from a couple of questions to kick us off from my Discord community, but I'll be focusing on questions from folks here live in the chat. So if you have a question about building, save it just for now until we get all sorted out. But then once we're in a place where we're building and you get a question, we can dig in. And there's a really good chance that some of the broader questions, specifically broader questions about big builds, are more than likely going to need me to switch over and play on the Citadel. Rather than trying to build an example, we can just go look at one and talk about it. And I think that might be an easier way to do that. And when that happens, depending on the length of the creative stream, we may end up doing some Let's Play and continue building in the medieval area on the Citadel. And actually, you can see some of the things that I talk about being applied as we raise some new buildings in Lowtown, the fishing village that we've been working on for, I don't know, probably about 6 weeks. 2 weeks? 2 weeks, probably. It feels like 6 weeks. It's certainly been 10 streams at least. So there's that. If you haven't guessed already, my name is Joel Duggan. Welcome in, everyone. Thanks to Cosmic and Sandy for the help with modding. Good to see Dan Grice. Good to see McScrewgun, of course. A lot of regulars in the chat. There is a tweet out there if you'd like to share and spread the word that this is happening. I even included a thread with the tweet earlier where I had examples of some of the builds that I've done over the last little while. Unfortunately, all of my screenshots are on a different computer, so it was harder to get everything together. However, let's just jump in here. I've got all the settings sorted. We're just going to do a new world. We're going to call it Build Q&A. Build or building? I don't remember what I called it. We'll call it building Q&A. And we're going to do it in a 119 snapshot. So go creative. I guess we'll go hard. Not that it matters. Cheats are on, data packs. I don't have any data packs. Game rules, I am going to turn raids are off. Disable raids, no. Turn disable raids on. I also want to turn off phantoms. Pillager patrols, turn off the wandering traders, and fire tick. We'll turn that off. I'll change the time of day on my own for fun. Yeah, okay, that should be good. Ready, set, go. Woo. So again, a big thank you to all of the incredible support that I've received on Twitch in March. It's been fantastic. Viewership is up. The support obviously is up, and that just means I could do more stuff. I actually streamed 2 extra bonus days this past week, so it's been super great, and I'm enjoying it a lot. I hope you are too. While this is loading, I'm gonna pour myself some coffee. Jess Plays, good to see you. Lots of people in chat rocking the Keystone badges. That's awesome. Hey, we spawned in a really nice little area. Look, there's a jungle over there. There's a savanna here. My screen is really choppy. I don't have any data packs or mods loaded. So it might be a little bit choppy while this world is loaded. Got jungle there. Village over there. Nice little area to build right here. And some caves. Nice. I think that worked out rather well. I'm just going to look around for a little bit. Haysbell, thanks very much. Hello. There's a pillager outpost. This would be a really interesting spawn area. Wow, you'd be set. If you were a speedrunner, you'd be laughing. Like, village, portal, lava. You got ocean. This is great. We can do all kinds of stuff here. So I think we'll just kind of bop around this area, build where we need to, and kind of get on from there. So will you ever play hardcore Minecraft, Joel? Probably not. It's not something I'm interested in doing. So I'm going to bring up the questions. I think it's this one. Ta-da! So we've got some questions. I also have the snapshot notes open so we know what the new blocks and stuff are. And I've got my Pinterest page open because we're probably going to be referring to that specifically for builds and references and things like that. So first one, how do you make proportions of a build feel balanced, especially vertically, especially when you're working on larger builds? So let's, I guess, we can either start new, or if the chat prefers, there's a double church here, which is a strange, short sort of situation. We could attempt to mess around with this and kind of improve the churches, or I could just start something brand new, whatever the chat feels like. This is a question from CJ, who can't be here today. So again, how do you make the proportions of a build feel balanced, especially vertically, specifically when you're working on larger builds? So depending on the scale you're working at, say you're building at player scale, which is a lot of what I'm doing on the Citadel, because I find that's the most appealing scale for me. Here's a good example of a very small build. And if you wanted to change the proportions of this, you would be adding stuff to the roof. I find that a good reference for this in terms of wanting to get details is artwork for mobile games, the kind of like top-down 3/4 view like that. They usually focus a lot on the roof and adding details to the roof. And in Minecraft, that usually means you want to go a little bit bigger. So generally in Minecraft, what looks good wouldn't look good in real life. So you've got a 1, 2, 3, 4 block base, so 4 meters, but then the roof is only another 2.5 meters taller. So what I like to do, we'll grab some wood here. Let's grab some oak. That, we'll need that, and you know, we're going to need some spruce trapdoors. But the first thing I would do here would be to change the height along here. And then possibly even go up higher. And that's going to give you more room and change the proportions vertically, right? How does this go? Grab that. Right, so right away, it changes the height of everything. Gives you another thing to work with here. And then you're taking your block along this way. Maybe what I'll do is I'll do about half the roof, and that way we can see the difference. And we've got a nice duplicate right next to it. So you can see that it changes the proportions, and now this looks like a 2-level house, but you've not gone and stacked another box on top of it. And then inside, it's tight, but you would be able to get another, like a loft in here. Like you could get, there's a too high ceiling, so you could have another floor at that level. Right? Still very, it's tight. And you could also, oh, you can't do it with those. But in some cases, depending on the height of the build, you can change upside down stairs so that they work. But to feel balanced, if it gets larger than this, like if you're talking about something that gets much more vertical, then you just have to think about like what, like it depends on what it is you're building. It's a really general question because like it could be, you know, are you building a lighthouse? Are you building a church tower? Are you building a bridge? You know, like there's lots of different things that comes into play. So reference is usually how I would go with it. And I'd say that you probably want to make it feel like it doesn't want to fall over if it's a really big vertical build. Looks like the house has a high forehead. Yeah, maybe. But you can see here, this gives you room to then add other things. So if we brought this over, we would then have room here to turn this sideways and add a little dormer. Whereas you really don't have a lot of room to do that on that build there. I should have installed some mods for zooming in and stuff, but I didn't. Yeah, it looks like a much taller build, and it's really only, well, how much taller is it? It's only a block taller, right? Because you've changed, not only did you change the height of it, you've also changed the angle of the roof. Like if we go inside this place and we put the same, right? Like there's no room up here. So you can add, because it's one advantage to Minecraft being so chunky with 1 meter tall blocks, is that you can add an entire floor sometimes by just adding a single block and then changing the angle. You know, like if we went up by 1 block and kept it at a 45-degree angle, it looks kind of silly. We could try that. And you'll see the difference. Because the question was about proportions. Actually, that wouldn't be there. It's so funny, I'm never around Minecraft cats. I almost forget that they exist half the time. Then I hear one meowing. It's like, is that my neighbor's cat? No, there's a cat in the game. So there's the difference. Right? This one, obviously this looks a little bit funny because it's the wrong color, but if we went and changed this to spruce so that you can see this a little bit differently. Plank. This is where I find creative mode is not as easy to work with, because I find that I'm always searching for blocks rather than just having a larger inventory. I think I'm probably going to have to turn the daylight cycle off, at least for now. Oop. Is it game? Cool. So I guess perspective is something that's important too. What you can see of the build, where you can help it make feel more balanced. That's another thing too. Yeah, like if the main way that you're viewing these houses is down here, then it's going to be more important that they look good from the ground. You know, So the roof might not matter so much. If you're really only seeing slivers of it like this, it's not going to be a big deal. But if the main vantage point was like, I don't know, maybe you're looking at these houses from over here. This is some cliff that you're standing on. You're mostly going to see roof. So you don't want the roofs to be boring. And so you'd want to try and change some of the perspectives and make them feel a little bit better. But just in terms of balance, like to me, I feel like that's more balanced. Because it still feels like it's about half roof. Where this feels like it's much more bottom heavy. Whereas this feels taller, but it doesn't feel... Here, it feels like we made the entire build taller. Here, it feels like we just stretched the bottom, right? Like it's like taffy. We just kind of like pulled the bottom and it got longer. Whereas here, it's like the whole build looks like it got taller. Even though they are the same height. I always have trouble adding dormers. So the thing with dormers is that you just have to pick a place that's good to pull them out from. Think of it like, if you have any experience with like 3D modeling. See, I've got the advantage of having worked in animation before, so I did some 3D modeling in school. But when you have situations like this, just to pull this across, right? So that's your roof. And you can pull them from different spots, but like usually with stairs or slabs, you want to come in here and you can pull them from anywhere. Like you can start it here if you want to. You just have to switch this to be, you know, an actual flat block. But then you run into, you know, how you want to pull the sides out. So you can do that. Just having stairs helps because they'll do this nice little corner for you, right? But see that, you might end up going up tall like that, and that may look... Sometimes you want that, and sometimes you don't. If it's a big wing of a house, you generally want to keep the roof line the same, but dormers, I think by definition, come out the side. So you usually just go lower. So again, you just pick your spot there, and then you start going down. I'm using a different color so you can see what I'm doing. Rotate sideways so you get that nice little L. And then here, you don't have to go with like planks again. You could easily switch this up. You can change it to be all kinds of different things. I mean, that doesn't look the best, but I guess probably strip spruce would be a better texture choice here. And then you can dress them up however you want. If you want to put shutters on them, if you want to put trapdoors on them. If they're 2 blocks tall, it does get a little bit tricky. For here, you'd probably want to do your trapdoors on the inside. Something like that. I forget what was the new diamond level. I don't know, it's like minus 50, 54. So yeah, I think that when you're dealing with proportions, like it depends on how big you want this house to feel, you know? And that's where things like purpose and story can come in a little bit and help you out. The mighty Elkhorn, hello, yes. Good to see you, sir. Hope things are well. And so I think here, this house would benefit from having a different color across the top. Probably also having something go down like that. maybe it doesn't have dormers on this side, so we'll just keep with the stairs. And I think I have to come out extra. So here's a good example of what I would do here is remove this and move this over by one. And then probably just go full block. Because this way we'll be able to get, whoops. An anonymous gifter gave Hazebell a sub. Hazebell, you can join the Discord now. Please do so. Thanks very much for the anonymous gift sub. Appreciate that. Whoop. I think that brings us up back to 200. One of the subs had ran out overnight since yesterday. So all I'm doing is just looking at this and thinking like it needs to have a little bit of, maybe we'll put that this way. Nope. Oh, come on. Not used to sliding around in creative mode. I wish there was someone, I think I had this discussion with Pixel Riffs on the show, where like I really wish, the show being the Sponchunks podcast, by the way, I really wish that you didn't slide around so much in creative. I find it makes me seasick. Do. Right, so now not only do you have a different proportion, but you also have a much more interesting roof design. Oh, I messed that up. Let's put trapdoors there instead. Not trap. Right. And if you ever find a roof is too tall, you can always try to concave the roof a little bit, so it'll feel tall from the end, but then it doesn't overpower by being too tall across here. You'll find that makes the roof feel a lot lower, but still contained. And you're really only dropping it by what, 1/8 of a block? Not even. I don't even know the proportions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5/16, right? You actually find it easier to control. Bedrock has no sliding. Maybe I'm just used to it. I haven't done any creative stuff in Bedrock. That would be an interesting thing to check. If I had an RTX card, I would definitely mess around with RTX. You always mix your materials on the roof. How do you do that with blocks like copper? I love using copper because I have a ton of it, but I always end up just using all copper. Sorry to repeat, just got lost in the subpipe. No problem, J Price. Yeah, folks, feel free to repeat your questions, or maybe tag a mod, or actually, if you have a question and you have enough channel points, you can highlight your question, which will make it easier for me to spot in the chat. So J Price says you always mix your materials on the roof. How do you do that with blocks like copper? Well, let's look for copper. So are you talking like oxidized copper? Or like what are you looking for here? Oh, we don't have a... I guess I should look at those. Are we going like with the full cut copper or like the oxidized stuff? Because some of this might be easier to work with others. I mean, obviously there's prismarine comes to mind for the cut copper. Yes, that doesn't that doesn't narrow it down. Full sentences. Be specific. In the meantime, we can give this a copper roof. So let's just go with, off the top of my head, I'm going to have more. Ooh, that's a fun sound. I'm going to have more to do with this block. Yeah, that was an accident, but we'll go with it. This is going to be a very random off the cuff experience, I think, for people. I feel like I'm playing an instrument. I need to build with copper more. Let's go there and there and there. So there's your copper roof, and you want to mix some stuff in. So let's look at, off the top of my head, prismarine, regular prismarine. I don't know if we could use dark, maybe. What other things in the block list are going to be warped wood is also good. Let's use this, actually. We might be able to use some signs. I've never done this, but come in here, maybe, oops, create something different. You don't always have to go darker on the edge. You can do something else if you want. So that's kind of helpful. I feel like maybe here we could do something that changes. No. Let's just stick with that. Oh. And then for here, if you're thinking about different colors, what I would suggest is something that would be like a reason for it. So we have prismarine. If we were to do the two different kinds of prismarine, so between the three of these, this reads as the lightest, then this, then that. So if I was thinking about, like, let's just say sun bleaching from materials being out in the sun for a long time, oops, we could do that. Maybe have that there. And then with this stuff, have that be closer to here. No, I had that backwards. So it sort of looks like it's been either eroded by rain or weather. You know, it's hard on a roof that size. That's where larger roofs tend to be a little bit easier to mess with. Oxidized and cut copper. So this is fully oxidized, I guess. So yeah, I mean, the oxidized is easier to work with because you've got things like the stripped hyphae that you can mess with. Right, so you can even come out here. And what's the warped? And then we can do planks. Or So you might want to go with a contrasting color for that. Like maybe you want to go with something orange, you know? So I would say if you're going to use copper, then you'd want to choose like a color or a block that's going to complement that. The hard part, of course, is that if you're doing roofs, depending on how you're doing them, like let's just say you're not using something that has stairs. So what would be a good way to go with copper? Let's go... I feel like this one, even though it has stairs, let's say your other blocks that you're using don't have stairs, like granite. Well, I guess they do have stairs, but I'm using this as an example. Dripstone is one that doesn't have stairs. I don't know if that really works. I'm just looking for something that has like that salmony color. Yes, some dead coral might. Okay. Look at a couple blocks here. So we can go with the copper, like if your roof... Ooh, that really is pink, isn't it? Let's go with sections of 2. Give myself a little bit extra room here. Right, so like let's say that's your roof. Then you could also come in with blocks like that. And again, thinking like what looks the lightest. That might not really fit. But yeah, if you're stuck with blocks that don't always work, then start to mess with that. I mean, you can start to play around with like just kind of different ideas. And this is where that 70-30 rule I talk about all the time comes in. So you want about 70% of your design in terms of like contrast to be easy on the eyes, or at least repetitive. So like I understand what this is, I see it everywhere. I don't have to analyze it every time I see it. Whereas that's very different. And then the rest of this kind of is about, it's about 30%. We could do a little bit more. Like I could maybe add another one of these over here. But it's about 30%. So then your eye is drawn to this stuff, which is interesting. But if this was all even, lost the ability to Minecraft just there. Like if we have this everywhere, see how noisy that is compared to when you just take it down a little bit? And it's not exact. You can do 60-40, you can do 75-25, like you can mess around with it. But by removing a little bit more of this, it's a lot easier on the eyes, but it still looks textured. And that's why I find that borders help too. If you're worried about stuff being noisy, by putting a hard, high contrast border, then the farther you get away, like your brain just sees 3 different colors, right? There's the bright ridgepole, there's the dark rim, and then this is just turquoise. That doesn't read as 3 different textures, right? It only reads as 1. And that's the other thing too, is that like when a build like this is only what, 3 or 4 blocks tall, it's a lot harder. When you've got custom builds like I've got on the Citadel where your roofs are ginormous, it becomes a lot easier. Plus you've also got opportunities like we were talking about with dormers to put those in to break things up. And they don't have to be crazy. Like we could take this away. I probably should not destroy stuff, but in case people want to look at this later. But I'll bring this across. Oops, goes there. And then we have more of this happening. Right? and you're starting to feel like this is still a lot. Oops. Grab that. So one of the things that you could do is grab your slabs. Oh, that's a stair. Never mind. So one of the things that you do here is break it up either in the middle or probably along these lines here. And you could do that with, you know, another texture. And depending on how this looks, you might even want to go with your dark prismarine, right? Like you'd even do. But for that, I would suggest you'd probably want to go with a block that you can create as a whole block, because it's going to break up the geometry as well. Right? And I find going up, like kind of breaking yourself into the geometry of the top line will help define your shapes. Do that. I'm not necessarily saying it's looking good, but it's looking more interesting than just a flat texture. And there's definitely more. There's definitely more than one copper. Like there's some copper in there, but it's become mostly other things, right? Salmon and beans, polished granite. Yeah, there's all kinds of different stuff that you can use. So yeah, let's just see here. How do you make the choice between texture gradient and harder lines, and how can all three be used in the same build? Texture gradients and harder lines. Let's maybe use a church for an example here. That, or I can just build a tower. Maybe we'll just build a tower here. Or a wall. I feel like a wall might work better. Any color suggestions for the wall? So let's just go. I mean, I guess I can go easy with like stone stuff. New 119 stuff. Okay. Let's go with a Sculk block. I guess a Sculk catalyst. Can you even craft those in? I don't know if we can use those as building, but ancient. Let's go with deep slate, I guess, then. Cobble deep slate. Bricks, crack bricks. How do you make choice between texture gradient and harder lines? How do you feel? 3, okay. So we'll go with like cobble deep slate. I'll need some basalt. So let's just say we've got like a cobble, a base of deep slate. I'm not going to be able to get far enough away from this. What is that? 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so there is one texture, and let's transition to something challenging. Wow, that's a weird noise. That's awesome. I don't know why you would be transitioning between these two things, but here we are. And halfway is about here. So on one hand, you could do a gradient. On the other hand, you want to go maybe straight between them. So the straight between is easy. Usually what you want to do in these situations is come up with a border, like some sort of way to move from one to the other. And what I would do here, we're going to go back to warped wood just because it looks like it has a lot of the same colors. Maybe that slab. Ooh, that could be fun. And oh, warped hyphae. And this might be too light, but we'll grab it anyway. So the easiest way to transition from one thing to the next is to create some sort of physical barrier. So, you know, in a really simple way, that makes the transition from that to that a lot nicer looking, of course, than just on its own. But that's a little bit on the basic side. So you could come in here with some more subtle ways. So you're still seeing some of the Sculk come through. Cool, thanks. I'll check the chat questions first then. Appreciate that. And of course you want to make this more interesting. Right? And so by doing stuff like this, you might even want to break this up a bit. Oh, that doesn't work. Right? So you can come up here. And this doesn't have to continue the whole way. I don't know if we have an easy way to transition out of this because we don't have... I mean, we've got stairs, but I don't know. That's still pretty high contrast if you ask me. Do we have any prismarine that would look good? I mean, really the next thing is probably that, but it doesn't really work. So by having something that's like more intense than this, it's creating a physical barrier. And then underneath this, you also, like this does start to feel a little bit high contrast there. So down here, we could start to choose blocks in the deep slate. I find that basalt looks really good. This is going to require a backside to this. So that helps it look a little bit more interesting. and helps with that feeling of traveling up, you know? And then for something darker, deep slates. We've got cracked looks good usually. You could even go for a little bit of a structure cue. And have that look like they're reinforced a little bit, you know? On the flip, you could also go with just a warped plank and pull that down, pull this dark stuff down a little bit. I think I like that better. And that helps with that transition of like, you've got this border, but then you sort of like by design bleed the border into the next texture. I mean, that looks really cool. I'm not sure what we could blend in with that, but the other thing that we might be able to do is something like that. It introduces a third color or fourth color, which you may or may not want. And then that provides an opportunity to maybe work with something like sand. Which does have stairs. Right? So you're not necessarily pulling on... see, now this is where this gets tricky, because this doesn't go as well. This doesn't match as well with the top part. So for that, you'd still want to have probably a harder transition for there. And I would say even this could be something special, like carved or something. Slightly deeper version of the end portal. Yeah, it is. It does look like a deeper version of an end portal. You're right. Is the new wood type good for any combinations? Let's check. Oh, wait a minute. I guess I should deal with the other one. So the other part of this question was a gradient. So I'll do this, and then we'll talk about the new wood type, which is mangrove wood. Actually, we can do them both at the same time. Although it probably makes sense to do this. So with this kind of a thing, we have to find some blocks that have like black and turquoise in them. So I'm looking at like probably concrete powder. I don't know if concrete is going to look good. Blackstone is probably going to be too purple. Black wool is probably going to have the wrong texture. What's the other one that I'm looking for? Coal. So let's just take a look at some of these. The ones that to me work the best are this one, because the texture on the concrete powder is similar to the Sculk. So here, this is hard to see because it's very dark. You can start to do like a little bit of a, it's called dithering in pixel art. So you bring a little bit of that up there. You could also sneak a little bit down. course, I'm using a the block I like is one that has gravity to it, which is a pain. Grab that, and then here. I feel like I need another gray block that's in between here and there. And I don't know if they've added anything. Mud, maybe? It's got a lot of red in it. Don't necessarily think that works. It might work here. It's an interesting noise. And then I do want to kind of experiment a little bit with this. I don't know. No, it's too light. Sometimes it's nice to get just one of your darker blocks kind of off on its own. Kind of helps pull things down. We need something else that's in this range. Is there anything in terracotta? This is going to be very loud. Wow. No. Let's go with deep slate. Maybe the cracked bricks. And again, we can kind of push these up a little bit. So it works a little bit better farther away, but I feel like there needs to be maybe dark prismarine. Everything is just so light compared to... it's not bad. Everything is just so light compared to the Sculk. Like the Sculk is a dark block. Not loving it. It's funny, you think dark prismarine. Look how dark prismarine looks over here, and then look how light it looks compared to the Sculk. Is there yeah, the farmer was scoping me out. What else do we have here? Oh, I didn't get into the hyphae stuff. This might be okay too. Nope. Far too much red. I find that's the challenge with Minecraft a lot of time. It's not so much that you can't find the right tone, you can't find the right hue. Things are like too red, too green, too purple. It's break time when you're ready. Thanks, Cosmic. All right, well, let's look at mangrove wood. I'll prep this and we'll talk about mangrove stuff when I get back. So true to form, if you're new to the channel, I take a break once an hour. And it is about that time. So I run a couple ads to support the stream. You don't miss anything, of course, because I'm not here. But it's 5 or 6 minutes. I do it once an hour. It helps me keep going and helps me fix my coffee, which is cold. So yeah, when we come back, we will address the question from, I think it was Imagining, the new wood type, any good for combinations. So we'll check out some combinations with the new wood type. Maybe we'll grab another roof, maybe that one or something, and we'll mess around and see what we can do with the new wood types. But as a quick attempt at a gradient, you can kind of see like you kind of have to mess with stuff. It's a little bit easier over larger surfaces. I picked two very challenging blocks to do. This is a lot easier to do with like normal stone, that kind of stuff. But if you're trying to decide between like a hard transition, usually the best way to do it is to have some sort of depth change. And that doesn't have to be like something layered on top. You could push this whole thing back by a block, right? If this whole thing was on this layer, then that would help with the transition as well. It doesn't have to be something additive, but it was fun to kind of mess around with the Sculk catalyst there at the end. So anyway, I'll be right back in about 5 or 6 minutes. All right. Now, I think we can knock a couple of questions out at once. I was looking over the chat on break, and I was looking at the document that Cosmic has been so lovely to put together for me for the stream. And what we can do is use the new mangrove wood, and then also address a couple of things. So one question that I saw was looking at ways you can break up large swaths of the same block. It's from McScrewgun. Those areas where all of a sudden you have 6 stacks of all the same stuff. So that's something I sort of covered here. But if you're building something new or you're expanding on something new, let's take this house, for example. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's not going to work out for me. So we're going to do 7. And I think what we can do is first start off with depth by making sure that this is not a flat thing. And then we're going to go and do sections of 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That brings us real close to that. Let's do 5 instead. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can give yourself a rule. 3, 4, 5. And that will give you sections where even if this was all cobblestone, it's broken up by the fact that you've got some vertical dividers. Right. So I think that that is something that can go a long way in terms of breaking up large areas, is just having some depth changes and giving yourself a rule, whether it's 5 or 7. Andy is Yoda has got some great videos on YouTube about his 5x5 building system. And it's just a great way to kind of like spring load your brain as to how to think about dividing up things in Minecraft. I've found it useful. I usually go larger. I usually go 7 or 8 or 9 or 7 or 9, sometimes 11. But we can do the same thing going this way, except for maybe we'll space this out a little bit more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mr. Tree, you're going to be in the way. I don't play in creative mode very often, but I have to say, every now and again, there's some very satisfying things that you can do in 5 seconds or less, which that was fun, I have to say. Okay, let's go here. Wow, this is red. I thought it was more pink when I watched Pixelriff's video, but it looks like it's a lot more red. So we've divided this up. We can go in the middle here as well. Right. Now we've got the pillars all sorted. We have to go over here. Remove that so we can see what we're doing. So this is how I would break up like large areas of a single block. So we'll use cobblestone just because it's easy. But you could also, to get into some of the crimson woods and stuff, someone was asking what these go with. I feel like they go with acacia and what's the other one? Crimson? Yeah, probably the case. I mean, that looks the same to me. I used the wrong one. That's crimson. That's not crimson, Mojang, just FYI. Crimson. This is more crimson. Just color stuff. Also, someone mentioned in chat if we could refresh our memory on tone and hue. Sure. Tone refers to light versus dark. So deep slate, cobble deep slate, and we'll go with like cracked. No, this is a good example. and then where's like coal. So here's a difference in tone, right? Right, light to dark. So that's a tonal shift, and there's not much of a shift in hue. They are all pretty neutral gray. They don't tend to skew blue or red or anything to me. They all look pretty neutral. But for hue, you'd want to go with something like, what's an easy gradient to do? Yellow. So let's go yellow, concrete powder, wool, maybe orange wool to concrete powder, and acacia maybe. So here, you're dealing with a little bit of a tonal change, but this is mostly a change in hue, right? So from yellow to orange, and actually if I remove that, there's really not much of a tonal change here, right? So, and I would even reverse those and go, because that's more saturated. So you're going from, maybe if I switch these around. Yeah. So you're going from yellow to orange, and it's not getting any darker. It's still bright, like it's going to wake you up in the morning. But that's a hue shift versus a tonal shift. And so what you'll hear me say a lot and complain about a lot, good old Blackstone. And to me, we look at Blackstone. This to me has a purple hue. When you compare it to coal, which we just established does not have a real hue to it, it's pretty neutral. You can see, if I go and find a purple block, that's extreme. What's a good, is there a decent purple block that's not like purple? I guess that's probably a good example. Right? Which of these looks closer to the purple terracotta, right? There's more, might even be a little bit on the blue side, but if I do blue, no, see, to that, it's more purple. But this, it's definitely going to be closer to something neutral. Like if I grab the stone, or even deep slate, that's probably a good example. See, I would say this is illustrating that deep slate has less purple in it. And like this goes better with the deep slate than it does with the purple. Even though there's black in this, this might not be the best example. Maybe I should go with like a purple wool. So there's no other black in it, right? But like this feels like it goes better. And see, that matches better than this, and this matches better. That's not terrible, but this I find when you're trying to match this up with other black things, it looks too blue, and it sucks if you're trying to match it with, you're trying to use this color. So here you're looking at both a tonal shift, this is darker than that, and a hue shift. This is warm, this is red, this is purple, this is cool. So you have to, you can still do it. It's just that if you want it to all feel kind of homogeneous, it's not. If you're going for high contrast, yep, does the trick, right? But it depends on what you're going for. So that's that in terms of hue versus tone. And then to get into what the mangrove wood goes with, let's go with slabs, and we'll go full planks. I guess we'll go here. And then... Oh, what about obsidian for the other stuff? Obsidian has got some purple in it, yeah. Right, you can see the purple. But we all knew that, right? What I was hoping for with Blackstone was this tone, but with a neutral color. Right? But I get that Blackstone is meant to go with netherrack, right? In the natural environment, it's meant to go better with that, right? It matches that a little bit better. I understand their decision. I just don't like it. Let's go up by 2. Make this a monster roof. So this is how I usually approach this kind of stuff. I'll go, even when I'm building in survival, I will go through and do the whole thing in a big block so that I know I know what I'm like. I know the shape. I go shape first. I worry less about texture. Unless I'm repeating something that I've built in the past, I worry less about texture at first and more about oh no, let's do this. More about shape. So shape is another great way that you can break up large pieces of blocks that you don't like. All making like a giant texture. So, or an unwanted pattern, I guess is what I should say. So here I went with that same kind of like standard, kind of like barn shape. One thing that you could do to make this a little bit more interesting is have a different shape to it as well. So on this side, let's try doing the same thing but in reverse. I am not able to build today. There we go. Nope, let's go one higher. Why is that not working? That's right. Oh, because I went too far. That's why. That's why. So this is just an example of a different style. These are easier to build, of course, because you can put the mangrove wood like right on top of the planks. I need to go for one more. My 1-year-old got my phone and tuned into the stream for you. Nice. I should hire that kid. Promo. I've got a manager and in the works. It's awesome. Legomolas is growing my manager. Make sure the water it every day. Change the soil from time to time. You know, lots of sunlight. Careful on the screen time. So I'm trying to get this in quickly so that we can talk about the different blocks that we think that the mangrove will go with. Oh, that's wrong. So there's a decent roof. We are probably not going to go with something like this. Let's maybe put something in around here. Right, so this is another example of like how you can break things up. And we're learning that the mangrove has the horizontal texture, which I wasn't paying attention to. Interesting. Do we want to see what that looks like going that way? It's gonna bug me that it's lopsided, but I wanted to do two different kinds of roofs. So here, same idea. We can just come through here. Poor villager is like, nope, I don't live here anymore. Nope, sir, you do not. So even though these are big chunks of cobble, it doesn't look awful because we've got these dividers and we've got a couple of layers of depth in terms of like vertical and horizontal. And of course, the other thing that you can do to make this feel even better and break up the giant. If you don't want to get crazy with texture, you can always do bushes. Right? Immediately. Now there's only 1, 2, like, I don't know, 7 blocks of cobble? 8, right? Really helps break up large pieces of the same thing. So when you're doing early Minecraft builds, like say your first couple days on a server and you're trying to break up these builds, but you've got nothing, like you've just got cobble, oak, you know, that's all you've got because that's all that's around. Then you can mess with stuff like that. To get into the wood stuff, I feel like that might be closer to what we want at the bottom. Let's go with stairs. I don't think it's going to go very well with granite. But then we've got acacia stairs. And then there's red sand as well. Let's just see here. Definitely more orange in it. So yeah, I don't know about crimson. I think it looks good with crimson because it's a plank, not because the colors look good together. I feel like it's closer to that. I'm also curious about like nether brick and dark oak. Yeah, like you can go from dark oak to like these complement one another because dark oak is very saturated. There's a lot of red in that brown. To get that deep brown, you have to have a lot of red in it. So that works well too. So this would be something where the tonal shift is so big that you'd probably want to go with that as like a border block, like what I did over here. I keep on pressing my button to zoom in when I know I don't have it. So we could do some of our, I guess our highlight blocks could be there. I'm kind of curious about the bricks. What are the other, like, what are red bricks that we have that are not stairs? I don't know. Again, it looks good, but it's like too close. So there's not enough contrast there. They kind of blend together, but then they don't really match because this is very magenta and that's very red. I don't think the planks are any better. What about the glazed? So here you've got more of a tonal match with the dark lines. Acacia. Really, you're kind of at the edge of what we can do in terms of a gradient or something like that. I don't think the copper would go with it. I think the copper is going to be too pink. Actually, it's about the same hue in terms of the color family. Like it's the same kind of like pink. This would be kind of like a desaturated version of this. So your mangrove wood could go very well with some, what is this? This is waxed exposed copper. Where I don't think it will go very well with this one. Actually, you know what? It does. I stand corrected. Great contrast block. It's because there's a little bit of red in this, right? Red concrete and wool. Concrete, red concrete powder, and red wool. And hey, look, mushroom block. Let's just do... I hate when you do that and you gotta go look for the thing again. And I think the next thing after this would probably be the bricks. Red nether brick. There might be something in between that. Not really sure. So I think it goes better with those three, if you ask me. I think this is just a texture difference, like it's too saturated. See, again, you pull down the saturation on the concrete powder and you get some of the same. It's not exact, like there's still, this is more purpley, but there's little bits in here that kind of help it. But these two are just too primary red. Like there's not enough of a tonal shift happening. I didn't realize how how maroon the red was for the concrete powder. You think about this as red until you see it next to a mushroom block. Interesting. All right, well, I think my favorite so far has been like a little bit of copper and maybe a little bit of the transition from acacia, and I liked the dark oak as well. Why don't... What do we have for copper? Granite? I don't know. I don't know granite. Did we try the granite? I thought we did. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. I mean, it's hard with the pink copper right there, because these obviously go very well together. But I think it's a combination of just not... It's just two different materials. It doesn't look... Yeah, that doesn't look great to me. So let's take something like the copper. So we'll grab the versions of this that we want. And if we were to give like a highlight or something. I guess I should have used the other copper block, huh? I find it strange that they don't give you like the nice smooth ones. I'd love to have slabs in copper that didn't have the cross in them, you know? It's a little on the nose. So here I think we might be better off with something darker. So we could either continue with the mangrove wood, or we can go up with something like a dark oak. Which I think might look better. Whoop, that is not a dark oak slab. So I think the issue here is that obviously there's not enough of a tonal shift from close up, but you can see it, but far away, they're really close to the same sort of tone. So that's where I think, you know, things like sandstone and acacia could come in. And get rid of that. Need a sandstone slab. And I'll need an acacia slab. And I feel like we have to switch over now to some acacia planks. Maybe some of those. Seriously? Weather clear. Surprised it actually took that long. It's been an hour and a half. Game. Go. Don't like that. What was the other one that we liked? Sandstone. I guess we have to kind of find some sort of dark one. It was the nether brick, wasn't it? Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm torn between the bricks and crimson. That might be a little bit too dark. I don't think we can get any crimson in there. No. Oops. I don't know. It feels like it's not quite, maybe not big enough. This doesn't fit. I wonder if I could start to use maybe some mangrove wood instead. Helps a little bit. Yeah, I mean, there's just, this is too busy and it's got a little bit too much green in it. So maybe this is where, you know, the nether brick could shine. No, it's too much red. So I don't know what would be the best block here. I mean, I guess we could just keep on going with that. But then, like, what do you use? Spruce for stairs? It looks good. You know, like, I hate to always go back to spruce. But, you know, if it works, right? Yeah, I mean, that's tough. I mean, it's my first day with the blocks, so you can see how that can be a little bit tricky. But, like, you can also use things like, again, to go back to the trapdoors and changing, giving geometric shift. I don't know if that's good or bad. Could also try the Mangrove trapdoor. There you go. And then maybe some stairs here. Cool. Again, I don't want to dwell too much on one question, but like I think here we've looked at what Mangrove goes well with, talked about tone and hue, talked a little bit about how you handle large sections of similar blocks and how you can just break it up very easily with geometry and depth rather than having to worry about crazy textures. Someone, I think Cosmic, had a question about how to use small builds, and I would call this a relatively small build. So like this section, how do you do extra texture in here without having it feel like you've got a lot of the same block? And I would say, just to quickly grab something like andesite that I know works well in this situation, is just pepper in a couple, like just like that's fine. You don't need to overdo it. In situations like that, especially if it's like a 3x3, like if you're dealing with something really small, then I drop the ratio from 70-30 to like 80-20. Like if that was your wall and you had a window, like I'd call that done. Especially if you can go in with a stair or something to change the geometry. Right? Same thing with andesite stair. That even is a little bit too much. I kind of like it that way. Right? Like if that's a small build, that's pretty good. Right? A little lacking on the depth, so we could also come out here. Do something like that. Something like a bush will also help break things up too. Like if you feel like it's too much cobble, put a bush there. Right? And that helps break things up quite a bit too. Really, a lot of small builds are sold by the groundkeeping, like really making it feel like it's been there a while. So where you can't go too detailed here, you can just sprawl out with like bushes and grass and flowers. So it sounds like you're kind of distracting from the fact that it's so small and simple, but you kind of are. You kind of are. Let's see here. Do we have any questions like in chat, like people that are actually here? Some of the questions in the doc are from Discord, but if I look at McScrewgun, you often outline a roof in a second color. Is there a reason for that? Yes, and I can maybe talk about that more when we get back to the Citadel. But it's usually for contrast. It's usually for shape clarity. It's because Minecraft textures are so samey. Like, for example, look at this roof, right? And just quickly decide, like, okay, you've got beige path blocks all around it. You've got You've got all the same texture. Everything's exactly the same. So we all know what a Minecraft roof looks like, but if you're new to the game or if you're looking at this quickly, that is a little harder to discern what the shape of it is when you compare it to this, which has, granted, the spruce matches the dirt, but it has a hard outline. So think of it like a cartoon. Like if I was to draw, Minecraft is so cartoony, right? So if I was to draw something in like, I don't know, let's go with moss, and let's just put down 5x5. Right? So like you can see it, but it's not going to stand out from the crowd very much. But if we look at something like a green terracotta, again, it's super cartoony, but all of a sudden, like, you are not missing that, right? Like that stands out immediately, even though this is a little bit same as the color as the trees behind it, but like it's a lot easier to see that when it's got an outline on it. And all this is just a way of doing that with textures that are appropriate and aren't so different. Like it'd be better if this had a texture. So if we were to do this with something like green concrete, which I don't know how different this is. So I would even say that that might have been a better choice, right? So we could have gone with, because it doesn't have, it has more of a texture shift, but it doesn't have as much as a tonal shift. So we're not losing as much of the green from the moss. And I mean, like, this looks kind of strange, but you can do it something like that. It just kind of helps break it apart from the grass, which has a very similar texture to the moss. So you're doing the same thing. So when we get back to the Citadel server, you'll see that a lot of times when I outline a roof, it's because chances are in my build, just like this, there's another roof behind it that is the same material. And if I had this was all oak, then like these would kind of blend together. But because they're separate, I can kind of scroll around here and like this house stands out next to everything around it because we've put an outline on it. The only time it doesn't is maybe, you know, if it's next to the dirt, right? You sort of lose the peak here. But that's where you're thinking about vantage point. If you're down here, it doesn't matter because it's up against the blue sky, right? It's tricky when you're flying around in creative. You get very used to looking down on things. Same thing when you have an elytra. I find I get bent out of shape looking down from above and how things look, then realizing that as the player, like, you can't see the top of the roof. It doesn't matter. You can't see it. Unless you're up a tower looking down, you can't see the tops of things. So it doesn't really matter all the time. I find that I have to remind myself of that a lot. I feel like I'm missing a lot of the questions from chat. I apologize. The whole idea was supposed to be a Q&A. Speaking as a former groundskeeper, bushes should never get that wild. Just saying. Nice. Very, very cool. Sky High MC, if you're still here, how do you connect two roofs successfully together without them looking off? I don't know what you mean by two roofs. Like two separate buildings? Or two sections of, like an L-shaped roof? Or like a build that makes like an L shape? Or a T shape, maybe? We can do it here. Do we have enough room to do it here? Yeah, probably. 2, 3. And let's just go, I guess maybe here. So here all you do is run the same pattern if that's what you want. If we're going for like the same height sort of idea. Well, it won't be exactly the same because it's a narrower build. But what I normally do is map out where you're attaching it to, find your ridge line, right? And then you just run this back. So I know you've got it's going to attach there. And so you know you can turn this stair sideways. I have to get rid of that one. And then you can bring this line back. And then you know that this is just going to be straight. Then you got another stair here. Delete that one. And that's how they connect. It can be more complicated with more complicated roof shapes, but that's how I would approach it. Once you have a good sense of it, you can start to do it in different areas, which is cool. Bigger, smaller, you know, once you've done it a couple of times, it's easier with large roofs. I will give you that. If you're working on something very small, it's going to be problematic. And that's why I normally suggest for people, like I said over here, increase the height of your roof, usually like it's a top-down mobile game, and you'll end up with a lot more freedom, a lot more ways to work, right? To have something like this. No, that's right. How do these trapdoors look if we use them in the way that we use other trapdoors? Like, do they look good? You use stuff like this? A little bit of a highlight there. That's interesting. Didn't notice that before. What's a good wood that we could use for the top of this? Guess maybe spruce could be good. So here's where you can come in and break up. It's a very simple way to come out and break up the that texture line. Just add a little bit of a trim, and all of a sudden that really strange looking texture shift looks fine. Like you can't even see it. Oh, that's too bad. Hopefully Sky High will watch the VOD. Milo WG, welcome in. Hope things are going well. Anybody else in chat have a direct question that they want me to talk about? What are your tips for building outside of the box? By which I mean working on a build that is not just a square, maybe even a diagonal build. Ah, that's a good one. Let's pop up my Pinterest page, and I've got a plans and patterns board. So these aren't things that I created. These are things that I just kind of pick up online. Things like building circles, arches. And it's just kind of like ideas. I never really copy things. It's more like, you know, where to start with stuff. Pixel art for things like patterns on floors, different jokes you might want to do with friends. Insane stuff that people do. Just wonderful, wonderful artwork that people do. Must have a lot of patience for that. But one of the things that I like is this stuff. Is the content creator... I think it's their handle down there. Doesn't really say who, but this has been on Reddit and stuff like that. So you can use references like this I don't really think about them as 26 degrees, 33 degrees, 45 degrees. I certainly think about 45s, but normally I think about them in chunks of like how we're going to break it up from a decor standpoint. So if you're going to do something like a house and you're breaking things up into diagonals, let's use something. Are there any other new blocks that came out with the snapshot that we can mess around with? I think it's just the mangrove wood, right? Mangrove mud. Let's go with the mud bricks. Oops. So we'll grab some of these. Oh, I lost my mouse. That's weird. Oh, it's annoying. Does anybody know how to fix that? I'll try to fix it on break. My cursor is missing. So we'll go with mud bricks. Mud and muddy mangrove. So over here, if we were to do an angled build, the thing that you have to think about when you're doing an angled build, and that is a loud piece of kit. Whoa. I can feel that in my heart. So these are going off in like 2 by 1. So you're going over to angle of 2. Now here, technically, you'd also want to go off in this direction to create what would be a right angle. I still have my thing up, sorry. So you've got this going across by 2 and this coming up this way by 2. So that's one way you can do it. The thing to remember when you're going off in sections of 2 is as you get higher, if this is going to be a house and you want to put windows in it, then you're going to run into this issue, right? Where you've got that kind of a thing. So I don't find I do this on builds where I'm necessarily going to need windows. And if I do, the trick that I use is that I don't put this at an angle. I kind of skew it. So I kind of cheat it. So here we'll go with, let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then from here, I'll go over to, this is really loud. And then connect them this way. Because that way, even though it's a really weird angle, you can still put your door in. Whereas here, the only way to do that is going to be to add something in, right? You're going to have something shoot off. I guess I could leave that there. You're going to have something shoot off over here to get inside. Right? Because any other way you do this, it's going to be very strange. Like you're still gonna have to do something inside, and then you're stuck with this weird transition. Like this becomes very tricky when you're trying to punch through it. So usually when I do an angled build like this, I will switch and do it. Let's use the other mud brick in 3. Whoa, that is soggy. So that way, they're roughly the same size. It feels like a little bit more of a natural angle, which is nice. And if you have to do any kind of doors or windows, then you're golden, right? You don't have to worry about it. Like you can almost have a window in every section. This is very purple, by the way. For mud, Very purple. So door, window, window, another door, window, right? Incredible freedom compared to, these are a little bit tricky, but you can make them work. But a lot of freedom compared to this. This gets very tight very quickly. The other easy one is the 45-degree angle, but that's just, the hard part about these for 45s is the roof. These are easy because the roof is just the same. You shift it over with every block, and that's fine. It's the 45s are tricky for the roofs. I've not found a good way to do a 45 roof. You have to usually have like it's not an overhang on the gable. You have like a reverse of whatever that is. I don't know what the technical term is, but. Does that answer your question, Cosmic? Do you need me to do a 45? Break time when you're ready. Yes, you are correct. We need to take it on to break. Curious about the mud brick block sound. Yeah, I don't know whether that's accurate or what, but oh, that's nicer. Like here's A, here's B. That feels a little bit more like deep slate. That's a lot of bass. It's probably accurate. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying it might not be the best gaming experience. I just had an idea. I don't know what this is like. Interesting. So that's a stone, and this, I don't know what noise that is, but so it treats it like grass. Because to make that is hay and mud. Yeah, these are cool. I never thought. Do they? Don't know if they go with these. They're probably better off with browns. Yeah. There's still a little bit of purple in them, but not enough to pull them towards the mangrove tree. I wonder if the crimson probably looks really jarring. Yee. Purple. The bricks on the stairs don't line up on the texture, it seems. Oh, you're right. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they do on the walls, but it looks like it's off by a hair. Right, so it's the bottom. It's this one here. It's meant to line up there, but then it doesn't line up there. So this face has to be shifted over by a pixel, I would say. Take care, Imagining. Good to see you. Good to see you. Great idea for crafting. I agree, Dang Rice. I think adding a building use for wheat in addition to wheat blocks, I think is great. I think it's very, very cool. Okay, I need to take that break. In the meantime, I will comb over the questions in the chat and see what else we can cover when we come back. Cosmic, I'll do a 45-degree angle build if you want to kind of see a quick way that I approach that. But I think pretty soon we'll be able to switch over to the Citadel and tackle some of the larger questions, like how do you decide an area is good for building? How do you plan out a big build, like that kind of stuff? rather than trying to build something, we can just look at stuff and talk about it, which I think might be a little bit more helpful. I don't know if I'm covering enough in this kind of a build it as you go kind of style. I don't know if I'm going too fast for people, but let me know. And when we come back, we'll tackle a few more things here if we need to, and then we can switch back over to the Citadel. And after that, I can just like go back into Let's Play build mode, and we can move on from there. Cool. I'll be right back. Okay, because we had a quick question about angled builds, the other way that I do these that seems to work really well, and we'll go with the mud brick, I guess, is you have to, if 45s are tricky because of the roof, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You definitely want to go with an odd number. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's wrong. So with these, the trick is that if you have a traditional roof gable, so right, and then we go over here. If you were to gonna put like stairs or bricks, it's really difficult to come in here and, oh, that noise hurts the head. So it's hard to kind of like come in here and get like an overhang. Like it becomes really chunky really quickly, right? As you're trying to like have a roof along here. Right? So that's your roof block. Right? It's easy enough to come along here, right? And make it look good there. Like that's okay. It's the edge that becomes very tricky. Right? That to me doesn't really jive very well as the edge of a roof. Like it sort of looks okay, but like you're always going to have an angle where it's at a funny clip. So what I like to do is come up the side here with another block, usually a slab. Now we have to find a slab that goes with mud brick. I've definitely painted myself into a corner here. Polished blackstone. Why not? Doesn't really work, but when you do that, then you've got this edge. And that can work very well. Right, and then you can run this right along here, and that becomes your roof. And then along here, same thing. And so I find that can be a better way. You can even go farther and have this go up by an entire block. And create like a fence sort of edge to the roof. And depending on the scale of the build, sometimes that does work better. But generally speaking, when I'm doing the 45 roofs, I really have to battle with them if I don't approach them in this way. You can't really, in my mind, I haven't been able to do this kind of overhanging gable on a 45. I find that they look a little bit strange. Now this lends itself better to medieval stuff where like this is going to be bricks and cool stuff like that. Doesn't look half bad. So mud going well with deep slate. Good to know. We didn't look at the mud over here, did we? Yeah, we did. We did. So big thank you to Halo Guitarist gifting a tier 1 sub, to Pointy Noggin. Pointy Noggin, make sure that you connect your Discord and your Twitch. I completely missed that like 2 hours ago, I think. And Flying Sheep gifted a sub to Binary and Math. Flying Sheep, thank you so much for the gift sub. What a nice thing to do. And both of you, I hope to see in the Discord. You can do that by connecting your Discord and your Twitch accounts, and then looking for the Joel Duggan Discord in your Connections tab in Discord. So, on to other questions. I think the only thing, most of the stuff that we have left are things that are like, when going into a new location, how do you plan ahead if it's a large area? What's your strategy for building on stream? What do we have here? What are your tips for avoiding tangents? I think this one of yours, Cosmic. I feel like I can maybe talk about that here, but I don't know. I feel like I already talked about that the other day in terms of tangents. A really nice way, I mean, one way to avoid them is to build wireframes first. Like, don't build detailed houses. Like, build, you know, scaffolding stuff out of the colors that you're using, and see if you can find a way to make it work, you know? That might be the best way. I feel like this is bugging me. Must fix. Did I get that right? No, I missed one. It's an odd color combination. Doesn't really work, but grab some of this here. What do you want to use the frog lights with? That's a good question. A really good question. We didn't look at those at all. Well, right away. There's one way. Let's take a look at these. Whoa. So I would imagine that purple probably goes pretty well with this one. I am correct. This one may be prismarine. Yes, but more so things like moss, I would imagine. No, huh. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not great either. What do we have here for like... Prismarine was definitely better, wasn't it? Oh, here we go. Nope. What about... jungle leaves? Definitely has more of a green tree vibe. Interesting. This is the kind of thing where I hope they adjust this to be less blue, I guess. Be nice if we, I mean, it still looks okay, but it feels, this feels very matchy, you know? And I imagine with like some darker stuff, it would look cool as well. And then this, I mean, gosh, probably like, I wonder if it goes well with other things like glowstone. I don't know about hay because I don't have my texture pack installed, so this hay bale is gonna look like snot. So, like, all the light, all the things. Sandstone, which we already figured out. Right. Stripped birch. That oak? Yeah, it's birch. Maybe even oak. Like that goes with a lot of things, I think. Green lime terracotta. Maybe. Forgot about lime. There we go. That's some bright. Glass. Well, slime blocks. I never thought about slime blocks. It makes sense that they go with slime blocks, which, yeah, I'd say that's probably where they were springboarding from. More about the, it's more about the slime blocks, I think. It'd be a really cool way to light your slime too. Like if you have like a slime wall. You want to have lights behind it. Especially because you can do the directional stuff with them too. Some weird noises. And then go high contrast. And then that's neat. Pretty cool. I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff with this. You can even put like a birch. Come on. I guess the birch trapdoor is a bad example. Jungle? Maybe? Yeah, I think that goes well too. What about jungle wood? Again, it's also warm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Flying Sheep asks, how do you add 3D detailing to flat wall? I think we covered this already, but just in case you already have a part of a wall built, how do you add detailing to a flat wall? I would focus on structure. Well, let's change it back to day. So like here's where we added some detailing to an otherwise flat wall. Here's we tried to, do a gradient to varying degrees of success and failure. But look at like your structure. Same thing with over here, right? Like just a single layer of depth helps a lot. Here's another layer of depth. So you've got something related to the structure for depth. You got a color change, and then you've got another color change, which is some more depth. So you're noticing a lot less of the cobblestone, right, than you are out here. And I would argue that we could even do this with just a couple of blocks. Like you can, we've got a lot of spruce going on. If we came in here and grabbed like a little bit of that and trapdoor, right? And what could we do here? Like, for example, push this out. And then door. Not my favorite door, but it's fine. Push the door back usually is a good way. Add a little bit of depth as well. And someone asked about avoiding tangents. Like, if you see them, just get rid of them. It's one way. And I would say here we could maybe switch and go with like, I mean, you could even push this out. And maybe we want to go with mangrove wood. So sometimes you don't have the ability to go deeper with your stuff, but you can always go a little bit out to the side and like grab one of those. Switch that up. Right, so that added a fair amount of depth. It looked like that before, and I've added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 blocks, 11 blocks. I mean, this looks terrible. It's not meant to be. That's not meant to be at the door. But you see what I mean? We can maybe come in here, cut that off, put that there. And for this, I'd probably end up going somewhere like that. Hopefully that answers your question. The yellow one looked like a lot like bone to me. I think you're talking about the frog light. Bone. Same kind of color temperature for sure. This is definitely more neutral. They don't really go very well with birch planks. That's a bit of a ick. But they go great with the strip spruce, or strip birch. Tarsiris subscribed with Prime for 11 months. Wow, 1 month away from a full year and a Space Keystone badge. Thanks ever so much, Tarsiris. Really appreciate that. Is there a good way to do something for the same similar color? Flying Sheep, I don't know about the context of that. I'm imagining the Sculk and a green frog light. Sculk and a green frog light. Maybe? Not awful. I would say it's a little bit on the lime side. I wonder what we never tried this. That's kind of fun. I feel like the green and the frog light goes well with the slime, and then I think you get some of that green when it goes dark, but because it's an animated texture, you're only getting it some of the time. But when you put the green with the warp wood, like both of these colors end up in that at some point. I might use that later on. That's pretty cool. Do you have any tips on how to improve roofs? I always seem to do the same pattern of roof. Would like to do something more interesting. Yes, actually. But it's not a tip for me. This is a tip that is on my Pinterest board. Same creator, I think, that did the top-down, whatchamacallit, the angled builds. So this is on my Pinterest board as well, which is Joel Duggan Art on Pinterest. And so you can see that they've outlined the suggestion of the blocks to use in terms of stairs, whole blocks, slabs, asymmetrical. They've even given them names. Like there's A-frame, gable, gambrel. Then there's a clerestory, monopitched, carved or curved, all that kind of stuff. And so you can play around with different combinations. But usually I find looking up reference is the best way. When I want to get inspired for a new roof shape, I very often will switch and go look for, actually let's bring that back up again. I'll go into like my actual reference images. So like we've been doing a lot of medieval stuff, but let's look at like some sci-fi things and be just like, you know, square roofs versus like here's an interesting, where was it? This. That's got some weird roof shapes, right? Like, what's that? It's odd. And if we go back into something like the medieval thing, if you're doing more like houses and things in Minecraft, then if you want to look at that, I think I've got more examples in the buildings section. So this will kind of reinforce what I was talking about earlier about going with like a mobile game sort of build style. But you can see in this one, like there's a gable, but like I would say this on the right hand side looks like a straight gable, whereas this looks like a slope. So you've got three different kinds of roofs here. You've got a sloping gable, you've got a straight gable maybe, and then you've got an arc here. So this is not meant to be straight. It's meant to be more like a curve. So you've got a couple different ideas there. And that is where you can take that inspiration and then go back to that reference image and like try to fill out some stuff. Here's another good one. So gable versus four-sided roof, small gable with a dormer. Changing the direction, I find too, or the height, like not having a straight ridge line, like varying your ridge line by a couple of blocks. Chimneys are a great way to break up roofs, even if they're not functional. Just having a chimney in the roof is a good idea too. Trying to think about if there's an example of one where they switch the gable. Sometimes you can find reference material for things like building systems, which I think is really cool. Where did it go? The problem with having so much reference is that you just have to sift through it sometimes. So this kind of thing is usually helpful, where you can start off with the basic house, but then just add chunks to it. So if you're comfortable with the build and you know how to do it, then you can add chunks and change the directions of the gables, add balconies. You can always start off with the basics and then kind of go from there. Sapnap, hello, welcome in. Mud blocks for roof tiles? Maybe. That might be a thing. We can try that over here. Where does this start? Nope. So... I mean, they're okay. They don't line up very well. This is weird. I find this line in the middle here. I don't know why that's like that. That feels very strange to me. I mean, it sort of works. I think once they fix the texture, it should be fine. And so here you can just switch the direction, covers up the holes. These have slabs? I think they do. Yep. Oh, they've got the wrong sound. And I don't know, you might be able to texture these a little bit. I don't know if we have... No, we don't have stairs or slabs in the packed mud. So maybe you'd have to go with like a copper maybe? Nope. Granite? It's better. I think you'd be better off to go with some blocks that you can work with different textures. But it's not the end of the world. Like, it's still a decent... I think this would be better in smaller roofs. The more of this you have, the more complicated it's going to be. It's going to look very busy. But I like that it's square. I like that they didn't do yet another stone brick, because it's different in terms of the brick layout to this, I think. Pretty sure. Yeah, they're smaller. They're square. But then they're not the same as endstone. No, because endstone is the same as that. What am I thinking of? Purpur? Yeah. So they're offset. I wonder if that's where they ran into trouble on the stairs. Cool. I think that's a good spot to wrap up the creative stream. We can still keep talking build questions and whatnot, but I think it might be a good opportunity to then pop over to the Citadel, and I can just kind of show examples of the larger planning and stuff I have on bigger builds. I really like the combination of Sculk, slime, and warped wood. That's really fun. The frog lights go really well with that. The frog lights, the warm frog lights, the ochre frog lights go really well with sandstone. And I think that's kind of cool. The green ones are harder to work with. The purple one has like a select amount of blocks it's going to go well with, but really not a lot. And then with the mangrove wood, it's very specific, and the problem is that it's kind of like homogenized with the other woods. So yes, it's red-ish, but it's also, it doesn't change in tone. Like it's not, it's kind of like, it's about the same as dark oak and it's about the same as spruce. So like it really, it doesn't change very much in tone. And I think that's probably why I find this roof doesn't work very well. So it's just as distant from acacia as spruce is. And so if this was lighter or if it was darker, then it might be easier to work with. I think anyway. But again, like those are the kind of things that take time to work with it and see what might be up. And the mud blocks are cool. They have a lot of colors in them. And our experience with these ones, hopefully the sound on that gets changed, because that's a lot of bass. I like the texture though. It's interesting. Anywho, so I'm going to wrap up the creative stream here. And I think what I'm going to do for my own purposes later on is I'm going to end the stream to create a second VOD. I'm going to keep streaming. Don't go anywhere. We're going to pop over to my long-term server world that I share with Cosmic and Steven ESC and Alistair McFly and all those folks. And I'll do some more building in survival and then talk more about building tips and roofs and things like that. So as questions pop up, feel free to throw them in the chat. But this will wrap up the creative portion of this afternoon. And I'll be back here in about, we'll say 5 to 7 minutes with the Citadel server. So yeah, be right back.